Welcome back to Straight Up, coming to you live from the studios of Newstalk93 FM here at the UA Mona campus. We are changing our line of sight, looking at the Rotary Club of New Kingston. You know, Rotary, as an international, or should I say a global brand, has focused a lot of its resources over the years on the eradication of poliomyelitis. And we are now joined by Professor William Aiken. Professor Aiken, no stranger to UA. He's a consultant urologist at the University Hospital of the West Indies and served as president of the Rotary Club of New Kingston for the 2017-2018 Rotary year. Morning, Professor Aiken.
Good morning, Raymond. Thank you for having me on your program.
No, and thank you and your team at the Rotary Club of New Kingston for setting up this interview with us, because a lot of people, and it's strange because where we're speaking to you from and where we're broadcasting from is not so far from the Sir John Golding Rehabilitation Center, which was, for want of a better way of saying it, the center of the treatment and care of persons who had come down with poliomyelitis. And we thought that that was that generation. Now we're seeing a lot of news stories popping up across the globe, including in the United States, of a seeming resurgence of polio. So take it through from there. What is polio? What's the Rotary doing? What do we as Jamaicans, as ordinary citizens, need to know? And how can we protect ourselves and our children?
Thank you for those questions, Raymond. So polio is a severe, debilitating, and potentially lethal disease that can cause permanent paralysis, especially in children under 5 years of age. It is totally preventable from vaccination. And since 1988, Rotary and its partners, which include the World Health Organization, the Bill and Melinda Gates charity, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and UNICEF, as well as various governments around the world, embarked on what is called the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. At that time in 1988, there were 350,000 children coming down with polio each year, the paralytic polio, so almost 1,000 children a day. Through the efforts of Rotary and its partners, we have managed to eradicate 99.9% of polio from the world. And there are only 2 countries now. When we started out, there were over 122 countries, but there are only 2 countries remaining where endemic polio persists, and that's Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, though, is, Raymond, that polio anywhere is a threat to children everywhere.
No, you mentioned this man in his 20s overseas. In Jamaica, the polio vaccine is one of the ones we don't question. We all questioned the COVID vaccine because COVID-19 was new and the vaccine was even newer. And based on people's memory, the vaccine, the questions were at the time created too quickly. But when it comes to the vaccination regime for newborns and children in the country, what is the percentage compliance, and is there anything to worry about in Jamaica where that is concerned?
I don't have figures for compliance, Raymond, but what I do know is that vaccination is a requirement for attendance at school. And so any child entering any educational institution, one of the prerequisites is that they must be fully up to date with their immunization. So this is one of the ways in which we ensure that immunization is up to date. We also have community health workers who check on children. And also when children are born at institutions like the university and Victoria Jubilee, there is follow-up to ensure that they are vaccinated. So I think our compliance, if I were to guess, I would say is extremely good. And we have not had any cases of polio in Jamaica for well over a decade. And so I don't think at the moment there is any overriding cause for concern in Jamaica. However, in places certainly like the United States where people have forgotten about the severity of the outbreaks and so on, and where you may have adults who are partially or totally unvaccinated, as we saw recently, polio can reemerge.
Plus, there's a trend in the United States where people opt to not have their children immunized because of various freedoms that the child does not participate in choosing. The adults, the parents choose, and some of it is religious, and others is just a decision. I don't want my child vaccinated or immunized. We don't have that here, at least nothing that I've seen reported in the press. So that's one less thing to worry about, Professor?
Yes, I think it's very unwise for parents to make that kind of decision because what they're doing is exposing unnecessarily their children to these diseases, childhood diseases. And as we know, paralysis from polio is permanent. And if it involves the muscles of the respiratory system, can cause death. So this is a totally preventable disease, and it's a disease that can be potentially eradicated, just like smallpox was some years ago. And this is why Rotary is redoubling its efforts to push for eradication, complete eradication of polio from the two remaining endemic areas. But also we have a system of ongoing surveillance to ensure that any potential pockets of reemergence of polio is immediately detected, or where polio may be circulating in the environment, that is detected right away. Of course, these efforts cost a lot of money, Raymond, and this is where the event that we have this weekend comes in. Each year, World Polio Day is celebrated on October 24, and Rotarians, the eradication of polio is Rotary's #1 external priority. So Rotarians all over the world are encouraged to have fundraising events to raise funds for the eradication of polio. So this weekend, on the 22nd and 23rd, we're going to have what is known as the world's greatest meal at the Julie Mango restaurant. That's at the Mayfair Hotel. All day Saturday, all day Sunday, where proceeds from the sale of meals, 20% of proceeds will go towards the Rotary Foundation's Polio Plus Fund, which is set up for the eradication of polio. You should know, Raymond, that every dollar that Rotary donates for the eradication of polio is matched 2-to-1 by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Right.
And therefore we aim to raise 50 million each year, so that 150 million in total can be donated to the World Health Organization for polio eradication on an annual basis.
Sometimes the best way to get a point across is to paint a different picture. How far would the fight against, or not? Let me not even say the fight against. How far would the campaign to control the spread of polio been, Professor Aiken, had it not been for Rotary International?
That's a very good question, Raymond. Rotary is the glue that holds the partners together, and Rotary is the one that does a lot of advocacy to respective governments, and it also increases public awareness, because a lot of people, quite frankly, have forgotten about polio. And this is this is not good because polio is still endemic in these two countries and can, as we have seen recently, can reemerge at any time. So Rotary's primary role is to advance public awareness, to advocate for governments to continue their eradication and surveillance efforts, as well as to raise funds so that each year we can give 150 million to the polio eradication efforts. I think we are the glue in the partnership with UNICEF and WHO, along with Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and of course, very importantly, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So Rotary is a very integral part of that alliance.